said that your Muslim brother, he holds five rights over you. And one of those things which the Prophet mentioned was the right to have the funeral prayer performed upon him. I will conclude by saying that such ahadith that are narrated to us by the Prophet ﷺ indicate just how important the funeral prayer is. One critical element to note when we look at the funeral prayer in terms of society is the ruling of the funeral prayer in terms of jurisprudence. The funeral prayer is a fard kifaya, which means that a portion of the community must conduct the funeral prayer. And if they conduct the funeral prayer, then the rest of the community is relieved of the obligation. However, if such a portion of the community or a small portion of the community do not offer the funeral prayer upon a deceased, then the sin falls upon the entire community. And this alludes to the importance of the funeral prayer and its ruling and how it is held in Islam. Before going through the way the prayer is conducted, let's talk a little bit about the pillars and the conditions. This is also very important. The pillars of the funeral prayer are a few things. The first thing is that we say the takbirs. So when we say Allahu Akbar, this is regarded as a pillar of the prayer. So you can't have the prayer without saying the takbirs. That's number one. Number two, you must stand for the prayer. This is also a fundamental element of the prayer that it cannot literally be without. The conditions of the funeral prayer are that first of all, that the dead or the deceased be Muslim, that he be in a clean state, because it is the right of the imam who is actually performing the prayer that when the deceased is in front of him, he be in a clean state. And it is also important that the deceased be placed in front of the imam and that the deceased or the majority of his body be present at that time. So when the imam comes to the prayer, after having met all the conditions, first of all, he intends the prayer. Now, the intention of the prayer is like the intention of any other prayer, as you would make for Fajr or for Dhuhr or for Asr. So when he comes to the prayer and he makes his first takbir and he says Allahu Akbar, raising his hands, he says the ta'awudh, which is A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, and this is followed by the Fatiha. Now the Fatiha begins by saying Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, so on and so forth. And I will of course demonstrate this practically later on in due course. This is followed then by the second takbir. So the imam and the followers, they again say Allahu Akbar, raising their hands. After they raise their hands for the second takbir, this is followed by the Ibrahimiyya, which is Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim, so on and so forth to the end, which means Ya Allah, send blessings upon Muhammad and the family of Muhammad as you did for, and so on and so forth. Then the imam and the followers say the third takbir, raising their hands, saying Allahu Akbar for the third time. Following this takbir, dua is made for the deceased. Now, there is a lengthy dua that the person makes. I will be demonstrating this, but it begins by saying Allahumma aghfir lahu warhamhu wa'afi wa'fu anhu, so on and so forth, and I will be showing you how this is performed correctly. If a person does not know that dua, then he can restrict his words to saying Allahumma aghfir lahu, Allahumma aghfir lahu, Allahumma aghfir lahu, which means Ya Allah, forgive him, Ya Allah, pardon him, Ya Allah, forgive him, and Ya Allah, pardon him. The imam then makes a takbir a fourth time, raising his hands, saying Allahu Akbar, and this is also done by the people behind him. In this situation, the dua is a general one, which could be Allahumma atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhab an-nar, which means Ya Allah, give us the good in this life and the good in the hereafter, and protect us and save us from the fire of hell, Ya Allah. After this, the imam gives salam to the right, saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, then to the left saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. The followers then imitate what the imam has done in their taslim, and this concludes the prayer, which I will now perform in front of you. I will now demonstrate how the funeral prayer is performed. Allahu Akbar. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. الله أكبر. اللهم اغفر له وارحمه وعافيه واعف عنه وأكرم نزله ووسع مدخله وغسله بالماء والثلج والبرد ونكه من الخطايا كما ينكي الثوب الأبيض من الدنس وأبدله ديرا خيرا من داره وأهلا خيرا من أهله وزوجا خيرا من زوجه وأدخله الجنة وأعذه من عذاب القبر وعذاب النار.